Our meeting to order, and the first order of business this morning, we have a public hearing of City Council. So I'd like to open the public hearing and ask our corporate officer to read the notice of the public hearing.
Good morning. This public hearing is being held to hear from anyone that may be affected by the proposed amendment to the city's zoning bylaw. Bylaw number 4395 proposes to rezone unit number 5, 11612 8th Street from C5 Commercial Neighborhood Pub Zone to C2 Commercial General, and there was no comments received regarding the notice.
Thank you. No correspondence or delegations this morning? No. Thank you. So for a first time, we'll call for any comments. For a second time, any comments? And for a third time, any comments? Thank you. We'll close that public hearing. And our next item of business is another public hearing this morning, and again, I'll ask the corporate officer to read the notice aloud.
Thank you. One more public hearing. This public hearing is being held to hear from anyone that may be affected by the proposed amendment to the city's zoning bylaw. Bylaw number 4396 proposes to remove the prohibition of retail cannabis sale and production clause from the city zoning bylaw. And again, there were no comments received for this bylaw.
Thank you, Brenda. Any correspondence or delegations?
There was none.
Thank you. So for a first time, we'll call for any comments. For a second time, any comments? And for a third time, any comments? Thank you. We'll close the public hearing. And now move on to our regular meeting of City Council with the Committee of the Whole today. So our first item is our delegations, 2.1. We have Melanie Turcott from the City of Dawson Creek, along with her friends, to promote the Candlelight Conservation Dinner in Dawson Creek on October 24th. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Holy, you got a lot of friends.
Ooh, yes,
nice.
We gathered.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, you guys. Good morning.
Here, I'll squeeze over.
Good morning. How are you? Good morning.
Friends and family.
Don't let the Lawrences enter any kind of a draw. They always win.
So we're here. Good morning. We're here to celebrate our Candlelight Conservation Dinner event, which is happening this Wednesday, October 24th. And we thought we'd do something a little bit different and announce the restaurants that are actually participating. And
cool.
we're trying to encourage people to get out to come and talk about conservation, waste reduction, water reduction, and all the great things, and have a nice, fun time eating out with family and friends. This year, the restaurants have stepped it up, and they've each purchased a food cycler. And they're going to have it a draw for the participants that attend their restaurant.
Oh, nice.
So it's been quite a great incentive. So we're going to start with the mayor. You come and pick which door you would like to.
I'll take door 5.
Chances Prospect Lounge.
Nice.
Councilor McFadden.
I'll take number 2.
GDI Bistro.
Nice.
Councilor Parslow.
I will be taking that. No way.
Yeah, but we're just announcing the restaurant.
7. B.
You don't Sola's Bar and Grill.
Nice.
Do you want to hold it?
No house of that.
And now we'll go with,
Counselor Zlatkoff.
sorry, Councilor Babcock.
I'll take number 1.
Ming Fang.
Nice.
All right.
Cheryl.
What's left? I'll take Stephanie's.
Airport.
Stevie's Diner.
Ooh.
No, maybe it's the one on
Okay.
Number 6.
liquor store.
Lodge, Motor Inn, and Cafe.
Oh, awesome.
I'll take number 8. I'll take what's
Mark's
left.
Bar and Grill.
What does 3 get?
Brown Social House.
Yeah, there you go.
So we have 7 participating restaurants. So please come out and support this event.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Melanie, and thank you to all of you guys for coming out and helping support a really worthwhile and fun event in the community annually, and really appreciate the effort that you guys have put into making this an annual event for the community. Thank you.
And thanks to our restaurants.
And thanks to the restaurants, absolutely.
And if there's any counselors that wish to participate as greeters, please see tab administration.
Perfect. Thank you.
Very much.
I thought 8 was the mayor's house.
Well, you picked it. Thank you. Thank you. Next item of business is our new councillor business. First item 3.1, Councillor Wilbur.
Yes. So during the all candidates debate, we did have a resident that had brought concerns forward about a house in their neighborhood and wasn't sure how to handle it, whether it be calling the RCMP, who will be here under committee of the whole, so maybe we can talk to them then about that. But maybe through you to staff, what can people do in their neighborhood if it's not necessarily, I mean, if it's something that they can pull the bylaw for? How can they handle this? Because it seems she felt it was a back and forth and wasn't really sure how to handle the situation.
Duncan?
So through your worship, just one comment. We have followed up in this particular case, and bylaw has taken action. It was the first complaint we had received. Moving forward, really all I can recommend is that it's clear, right? We get a lot of broad terms, but the more clear that people can be as far as their complaint, the better we can react, and the quicker we can resolve any issues that have been presented. Have spoken to the RCMP, and they will be here in the committee of the whole as well. But yeah, the clearer you can be, the quicker and the better response we can have.
So then through you to staff again, so what are some things that people have found, like unsightly yard, tall grass? What are some things that they could, you know, maybe that's not, they know there's activity going on there, but what are some things that they would phone bylaw for? So that I would like to get back to this resident and say, clearly these are things that you can phone bylaw for.
Yes.
And that we could look at it, because obviously, I mean,
Yes.
it's an issue for all the neighbors, so.
Yeah, so through your worship, I'll comment fairly broad, but some of the concerns that are brought forward through bylaw usually have to do with unpermitted construction or garbage. There's also some tall grass and weeds. These are some of the areas that we receive complaints throughout the summer. Usually in the winter things get covered up and it's less intrusive, but those are some of the areas. Kevin, any other areas that I'm missing where maybe we get concerns from the public?
Dogs.
Sometimes some parking infractions, people parking the wrong way in the street or out hanging over sidewalks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So basically, we have bylaw enforcement for the city does and deals with any bylaw infraction that may exist for a resident that could contact our bylaw enforcement for clarity around that if it is a infraction they feel should be investigated. And if it's a complaint, then our staff would do that. If it's a criminal, we can talk to the RCMP about that in terms of how they would handle an investigation or a complaint from a resident about a criminal activity that a resident may feel is going on in their neighborhood.
No, I agree.
Thank you. Anything further?
Just
ahead.
one other thing, because I was outdoor knocking, and so apparently the neighborhood around Crescent Park, so that'd be from 17th and then runs all along the tracks. We have 3 garbage cans. We have one close to 17th, one in the children's park at the far end, but we've placed a garbage can kind of in the middle, and that seems to be where everyone's taking their dogs and letting them do their business, but we only have poopy bags at the 2 ends. So I'm wondering if maybe we have another one in yards or something that we could put up in that park. And so some of the complaint from parents was their kids were out there playing and were rolling around in the dog's business. And so people are using them at other ends, but there's nothing in the middle. So I just thought if maybe we could provide some bags there, then people will pick up their dog's business and put it in the garbage can that's provided.
Thank you. Duncan?
Through your worship, we'll take a look at it and see what's existing.
And there's also a message there to me in terms of responsible
Absolutely.
dog owners and cat owners and clean up after your animal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Anything further?
Nope.
No. Other Councilor Schumann.
So I'm going to take this minute to say thank you. Oh, I don't want to cry.
was quick.
Not like
It might take more than a minute. I just want to thank the citizens of Dawson Creek for 10 years of the honor of being in this chair. It's been really great, and I've enjoyed it. Even Paul, I even enjoyed Paul. And I want to congratulate everyone who was successful, Amy and Jeremy and Shay and Paul and Charlie and Blair. I want to congratulate everyone. I want to thank staff. So great. We really do have the best staff here. God, I'm going to do the ugly cry. It's horrid. Who else? Citizens. Thank the citizens. All of my colleagues since 2008. I have learned so much from all of them. There's been a lot of people that I have grown attached to, and yeah, so I didn't want to cry. I wasn't going to cry, but I am. So I just want to thank you all and wish you all the best.
Thank you.
So that's all.
Thank you.
Schumann's out.
Great job. Great job for lightening up the meeting. No, I'm
Yeah,
teasing you.
you're welcome. I kind of did this the other night.
You,
Ruined Jeremy and Shaylee's party. No.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And thank you on behalf of all of our predecessors, all of the people who you've served with. And it demonstrates how much people care about our community when they sit in these chairs. And I think you've exemplified that and your passion towards the job and the role. And I've loved working for you and with you over the last 5 years, and I want to wish you the very best.
Thanks, Dale.
Any other new councillor business? Councillor Parslow?
With the first piece of work that staff are engaging in with the official community plan is zoning issues. One of the topics that has been brought to my attention again that I had no answer for relates to, you remember that some time ago there was an attempt to insert a frac sand distribution center in the core of Dawson Creek. That would be, it seemed, staff told us that would be permissible through the current zoning. In the review of the OCP, was that zoning status changed to align it with what happened at LP, or does that need to be reviewed again? I had no recollection that it was put forward as a change to the current zoning.
Duncan?
So through your worship, the frac sand facility happened many years ago, probably 3 or 4 before I started here. So to lean on Kevin on just the zoning.
So through your worship, a couple things. Through the OCP process, the designation remains the same, mixed use, as it did before. The zoning remains the same, which is industrial, which means by definition it's a permitted use. Second to that is the fact that it's owned by CN. And based on the research we did the last time that had come up, that regardless of what the zoning or the OCP is, CN believes that they would be permitted that use regardless. So there's some debate there, but as it sits, nothing's changed from where it was previously.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Councillor Javetkov?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that mayor and council make a formal request to CN to consider reducing the noise levels of the safety system that they've got in our residential area. And I'd like to move that to mayor's business.
Thank you. Seconded? Councillor Wilbur? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So we'll deal with that under mayor's business. Thank you. Anything further? Councillor Rogers?
Yep, missed the last meeting, so I'm gonna play a little bit of catch up. I did attend a function that was at the South Peace Senior Secondary School. It was an open house that was meant to establish new relationships in the community and strengthen those relationships with through businesses and other people. And good chance to meet all of the teachers. I spent most of the evening introducing people and some of the people that were running for election to the Youth Advisory Council, which was really kind of cool. And just to elaborate a little bit more on the Youth Advisory Council, they're moving forward. They've had a couple of meetings already this year. They are planning a bunch of initiatives. It's not me to say what they're planning on doing, but they're moving forward. And the last meeting, the terms of references were all out. They were looking at that, and it's really exciting to see what's happening there. Anyways, Northern Development. We had a recent RAC meeting. If council remembers, we put forward a motion to the regional district for a feasibility study, and I believe that had carried at the regional district level. So at the RAC level, the regional district had applied for a grant for $10,000 to support the feasibility study for the regional district to do for a field house. So that got turned down at the RAC level. There was talk about governance, whether the regional district was responsible for doing that, but the pushback came primarily from the north. It was a 5-5 split because Fort St. John is currently doing a feasibility study through the regional district for a swimming pool, but it's not a field house. So I think something got muddied up there, so I wish I would have had a chance to talk to Worship about that sooner. But so it's probably going to come back again anyways at the board level through the regional district. I don't know if you've heard anything about that.
So my understanding is that the North Piece are engaging in a recreational facility study, and so as part of that was the replacement plans of the North Piece Leisure Pool, but I think it's broader than that in terms of the entire regional district, both B and Brad Sperling's area, that are reviewing the recreational facilities in the North Piece, along with Taylor and Hudson Home. So I'm not sure of the extent of it because it hasn't been directly affecting the South Piece, but I think it's broader than just the pool, I believe.
Yeah, well, from what I understand it was all about the pool, and that it might be flushed out that they need a field house. Like every community that I've talked to, and I've talked to folks in the Northwest who are also looking for a feasibility study for a field house in Northwest BC as well as Northeast BC, and my argument was, well, whatever we're doing in the Northeast will help the people in the Northwest that are, maybe we can kind of partner on information back and forth. But I think every community has already been identified that a indoor facility, an indoor sports facility is recommended. Even Dawson Creek, I don't know if you guys know it, but there's a recreation master plan that has been sitting on a shelf for a long time that actually I haven't even read it yet. I've asked for it, but I haven't seen it yet. But I think that the feasibility study is important work that should be done for Northeast BC, so hopefully that can carry on. So that was the latest RAC meeting. Last intake is for October, so you'll be seeing things coming up for that. I think Mr. Jackhoff has another application for a grant coming in. So people in Dawson Creek, please get your grant writer, contact your grant writer and get your grants in. This is the first intake that's coming up. Board meeting. Northern Development Board meeting, just to give you an update on that, because that was my last one as well. They're looking after over $300 million now. There's a connectivity program that we're running programs through the provincial government is putting out millions of dollars. $20 million recently for the agricultural fund for the BC Hydro for the dam. Northern Development's managing that fund as well. So there's a lot of things coming up. There's a little bit of refresh and rebranding of Love BC programs that Shaylee knows lots about. So that was about all I got for that. And I just hope that through council, the momentum we have through Northern Development carries on and is well supported.
Thank you.
And that's it for me. What Cheryl said, without crying.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other new councillor business? Councillor Parsons.
Something that was brought up by Councillor Rogers. I sure hope that the south part of the Peace Region isn't asleep on this recreation facility. Let's call it Field House. It seems to me, if Fortson, that any location for a northeast region field house would be probably somewhere around Farmington. I think with the, we are the crossroads for, Chetwynd, Tumbler Ridge, and you combine the region. I just hate to see this located in Fort St. John. I think if it's going to be any regional money, surely it should be somewhat equidistant from the two major centres.
Well, that's the, sorry, if it's okay. The feasibility flushes all of that stuff out. It flushes out how many soccer teams there are and how many, baseball teams as well, and basketball, volleyball, huge. So that flushes all that information out. But then it also flushes out where the best location for it would be, because a field house, what we're talking about, is for people that don't know, it's a full-size soccer pitch inside a full-size running track oval, where you can play all of your field sports, your track events. So that's long jump and javelin and all of those other sports that you see out there. So with all of the sports and things that can go on inside these facilities, it has to be supported by the whole region. It can't be supported by one or two communities because it's just not viable. It won't happen with all of the information that I've gathered so far.
Well, and so that's from the regional district perspective. There certainly has been no discussion at the RD to support or not support that field house. That even you see the split in terms of supporting the funding of it. So it's a long way off in my view, but it hasn't been at the board.
Yeah.
But is that split because Fort St. John has plans in the works? That's what I'm concerned.
I can't answer that. I know that they're doing the study on their recreational facilities, and that was primarily driven by as a result of needing to replace the North Peace Leisure Pool. So, not a field house.
And that's the exact same conversation I've had with their CEO.
Thank you. Anything further on new councillor business? Thank you. Move on to minutes. 4.1, the minutes of a regular meeting of council of October 1st, 2018 for adoption. Councillor McFadden, Councillor Schumann. Any errors or omissions in the minutes? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Any business arising out of the minutes? Correspondence 6.1, we have a letter from David Eby, Attorney General, regarding licenses for the retail sale of non-medical cannabis. Councillor Parslow.
Received for information.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Wilbur, discussion? Duncan?
So through your worship, just a good opportunity to give council a quick update. So non-medical cannabis is now legal. Today we're considering removing the prohibition within our community on cannabis retail. And we have applications in front of us. The province has been in contact. Provided that the prohibition is removed today, we will be going out to public notice tomorrow for our first application, and the new council will see that application on November 19th. So the province has approached it like a liquor primary license in that it's two streams functioning at the same time. They're working their way through security clearance. They're working their way through the financial piece where they follow where that money comes from for the dispensary and how they're going to fund their operation. And they'd like the local governments to proceed through our stream as well, which is really council blessing and compliance with whatever bylaws we've set. So we are working with the applicants. We will be going out to public notice and providing that location, and you will see a report on November 19th. We do have other groups interested, and we're trying to be as straightforward and try to streamline this process as much as possible, but it's fairly new, and so council will probably see a few of these as we work our way through the process and just the newisms of cannabis.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. 6.2, we have a letter from Rhonda Vanderfloot, Registrar of the Youth Parliament of BC Alumni for the BC Youth Parliament 90th Parliament. Councillor Rogers.
I'd just like to speak to this for a minute.
So we need a motion?
Yes, so moved.
Second? You were making a motion for discussion?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Seconded?
Sure.
Councillor Wilbur. Go ahead.
Okay, I couldn't help but notice, okay, what I have done is I took this letter and I took it to the South Peace Senior Secondary School to find out if there was any interest. But then I noticed the date on it was September the 18th that it was written. City received it October the 9th, and I got it on the Wednesday of last week when it was actually on the agenda, so that's when I took it to school. And it says at the bottom of it, all applications must be received by October the 23rd. I got a problem with the dates and the opportunity for the youth in Dawson Creek to actually apply. So I guess maybe they'd be looking at it next year. This also happened with the UBCM wanting to send youth from a community down. So it's always nice for these groups to put something forward, but it's kind of like grants sometimes where you get a date and you got to respond to it within like a week. And in this case, we get a day to respond to it, or the youth that are interested get a day to respond to it. That's my only comment with that. I've talked to the Youth Advisory Council at the school, and I guess they're going to be looking into it for next year.
Well, certainly, so I would suggest that if we have some interest, that we would absolutely go back to the Youth Parliament of British Columbia and say, listen, the time frames in which you've given us to respond to this, clearly we're too short for us in terms of to make that recommendation, and if we do have interest, that we want to push that forward to the Youth Parliament of BC, if there are interest from within the Youth Advisory Council.
Yeah, we've had interest in Dawson Creek before, because Selah Schmaltz was actually here, I believe it was last year or the year before, so she was part of it as well.
So when you took it to them, did you give them the applications? Did anybody?
I gave the application. I got a email from one of the kids regarding this, and they wanted to know what the 1-year commitment was all about. So I got them all of that information. So hopefully, maybe I'll hear something, or maybe they'll put an application in today. I'll give them a shout here as soon as I can.
Thank you. Councillor Parslow, Councillor Javetkov.
Well, just reflecting, I was having the same reflections as you. I would like to move that we have administration contact BC Youth, that we have a lay application given and explain the circumstances, and we worked with the South Peace Youth Council to have a participant, and we sponsor it.
So we have a motion for discussion, and then perhaps we can move that forward with direction to administration. Brenda?
Yes, you could vote on
The discussion?
motion for discussion
And then make a
receive the
subsequent
second
motion for direction?
Yeah.
So let's do that. Let's move, we've got a motion for discussion to allow this, so
We've had
let's,
the discussion.
Councillor Javetkov first, and then,
So, are we the only ones that get this letter? It looks like a generic letter. It looks like it's one of those that are sent out to everybody under the sun. So I don't know if the city bears the total responsibility of dealing with this issue. I'm sure they don't. But maybe that's a question that could be asked.
Yeah. Like I say, I don't know who all it went
Like,
to, but
if it was me sending it out, because it involves youth, I would automatically send it out to all the high schools.
yeah.
You know, if it was me.
So let's, hopefully, from the discussion, let's, I think, we've received it, we've had the discussion, let's vote on that, and then provide direction to administration to get some of that information back. And Councilor Rogers can follow up if we do have an interested party and forward that on to
Question?
Question? All in favor for discussion? Thank you. And Councillor Parslow, you had a motion now to direct administration to follow up with the Youth Parliament of British Columbia to determine if we can provide some late applicants to it.
And that we sponsor an applicant from the South Peace, or Dawson Creek Secondary School Youth Council.
Okay. Seconded. Councillor McFadden, discussion. And that will hopefully, Councillor Javetkov, go ahead.
Well, again, in light of our financial situation, adding more expenses to the city, I don't think is correct at this time, so I'll vote against the motion.
Thank you. The 395 plus would be sponsorship from our sponsorship. Duncan?
Yeah, so through your worship, it indicates that the 395 is registration, covers a portion of the transportation and accommodation, but there would be additional costs. The council would have to decide if you wanted to fund or leave that up to the student to fundraise.
Thank you. Councillor Rogers?
I think what we have to do is find out, I think just, I would like to just say, leave it with me. Because the school, last time the city never funded anything for Ms. Schmaltz, who was part of the youth parliament. So I'm thinking that maybe this program is actually, the financing can be done through the school.
So, and I think, so what I'm assuming though, the motion is that we're going to fund the $395 was Councillor Rogers, or Councillor Parslow's motion.
Okay.
Councillor Javetkov?
So we talked, actually, Councillor Parslow talked about it before, waiting for the policy on grants.
Don't remind me of the passage of the new season.
Maybe we could wait for that.
Further discussion?
In all honesty, I think that the timeline with this and with the capacity over at the school, we're not 100% certain that this will, that somebody's actually going to be interested. I think maybe just Principal Kiriata already knows about it. I haven't really talked to him about it, so I would think that maybe just wait till next year. I don't know if it's viable.
So you're speaking against the motion?
I just did, yes.
Thank you. Further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Opposed, Councillor Javetkov, Councillor Rogers. Thank you. 6.3, we have a letter from Wayne Middleton, president of the Dawson Creek Golf Club. Councillor Parslow.
I'd like to ask a question of staff first. What's the cost involved in this issue of drainage?
There is no ask.
There's no
It's
ask.
coming.
Duncan?
So through your worship, the ask is to improve the drainage on 102nd. Ultimately, the improvement would be a bridge. I mean, there's lots in between. We don't know the ramifications
Oh,
downstream.
the solution's a bridge.
Well, I mean, there's many different solutions. They indicated that the pumps reduce some of the water, but they'd like none of the water on the golf course, is my understanding. I mean, the cost of a bridge, we'd done some rough numbers. I thought it was around 4 or something along there, 4 million. I thought we had talked about, but it was 10th Street. Kevin, do you recall?
10th Street was just under 4.
Yeah. So
I think, first of all, the flood mitigation work that we've done, and now the second phase of that planning work is underway. And I think it's, from my perspective, I think the uncertainty in terms of what we're going to do is still in the planning mechanism. And we heard that from the consulting firm who did the plan for us. It's complex, and it's going to take some analysis, and it's going to take some work with the Ministry of Transportation on Highways and doing the hydrology. So that's the work that's underway. So anyways, Councillor Javetkov?
I'll make a motion that we refer this note to Barry Ortman, that company that's doing the current study on the pinch points on the creek. This is one of a number of issues, so I think it needs to be considered in the big picture, you know,
Sure.
including the whole, all of the stream issues.
Thank you. Seconded? For a second time, do I have a seconder for the motion? We refer Councillor Wilbur?
I'll second it so
Thank
that
you.
the information follows through and it's all collected.
Thank you. Councillor Javetkov and Councillor Roger?
So my understanding is that we've currently got a study in the works to identify all of the issues along the stream that that are there to deal with mitigating the floods. And this is one of them. I think it's, you know, it needs to be included in that study.
Councillor Roger?
When I first read this, when I first read it, and then I got referred to the financial statement. So on the financial statement, they had highlighted it, that memberships, they were down $18,800. But yet green fees were up $5,000. If you look down at the very bottom, the total revenue, they had a revenue increase of $44,000. So I looked at it and I go, don't whine and cry to me because your membership is down, because your total revenue increased by $44,000. And in this financial statement, it meant so that with their expenses, less their expenses, they had a total revenue of $423,000. I thought they were gonna not want it to be exempted from permissive tax. The golf course is in a floodplain. They know it's in a floodplain. Yeah. They rely on that flood every year to fill up all of their dugouts for their irrigation. And that flood event that we had just recently had, that was only like 3 days long where they actually had the pumps going. So if it's to stop the flooding of the golf course by building the bridge on 102nd, I don't know if that's going to cause them more problems in the future or not. It's a slippery.
Thank you. Councillor Parsley.
Well, based upon the previous correspondence, my understanding was that the issue was a blocked culvert. So I'm at a loss as to why we talking about a bridge. Can you just correct my misunderstandings here?
Sure.
Okay.
So through your worship, 102nd, and maybe I'll flip this over to Kevin. He's done some work in this area. Maybe Kevin can actually talk about the process that we're going to undertake as far as hydrometric testing and flood mapping and how we're moving forward. But when you look at flows, 17th Street flows or allows more water to pass than 102nd can. So ultimately, when you talk about pinch points or areas where water is going to be held, that's one of those areas just due to flow. As far as our steps and our process and where we are along that flood mitigation line, Kevin, can you talk a little bit?
Yeah, so through your worship, we've applied for a grant to do updated flood mapping, which is kind of that next step and criteria that if we wish to get any funding from upper levels of government, we need to do this work. So we're working through that process as per the flood mitigation plan. So that's really the next step. In the flood mitigation plan, they did highlight that their opinion that 102nd Avenue was not the right time to make a change there. Just with 8th Street coming or being upgraded to a bridge, there was going to be some changes in that flow without doing some additional studies on erosion and what that may potentially look like as well. So that's kind of the next steps, is that we're hoping to get the grant money. Hopefully we can do that flood, updated flood mapping, and that'll get us into that big next step.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate. I knew all that. I've just asked the question: where am I getting this impression that the issue was caused by a blocked culvert? I mean, I appreciate everything that you've said, and I was aware of those things. So does anybody else have any recollection that this was due to a blocked culvert?
The pumping that went on last year?
Yes.
Yeah, no, it wasn't blocked. It was just the reduced flows there, and as it was building up, and it was, the belief was, as the water was climbing during the day and slowing at night, that the pumping past 102nd would help alleviate some of that potential of flooding at 17th Street and 102nd. So the culvert wasn't plugged. It was just the increased flow was pinched at the 102nd versus what was coming through on 17. Councillor Wilbur.
Thank you. I think we're getting way ahead of ourselves here. The motion is to pass this information on to be a part of that study, because it's just an expression of they feel there's some backflow of that water because of 102nd. So bridges, culverts, I think we're getting way ahead of ourselves. We just want this to go forward, to be included in that flood mitigation and the work we're doing as information for those doing it. Right, Paul?
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 6.4, we have a letter from Liz Gustafson, the Congress coordinator for the Peace Country Beef Congress being held in January. Councillor Javetkov.
Receive for information.
Seconded. Councillor Rogers. Discussion? Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, what's been our past action on this request?
Go ahead, Duncan.
Through your worship, in 2016, we provided $2,500. In 2017, it was increased to $5,000. In 2018, it was reduced to 2.5, and we suggested the group look at an NDIT application for the remaining funding.
Sorry, we sponsored last year 2,500?
Yep.
Thank you. Further discussion, receive for information, Councillor Javetkov?
Just a comment. I mean, you know, we've built a Lakota Center for this kind of activity, and we pay, I don't know, $300,000 a year to maintain it, so we're already contributing a considerable amount to, you know, the agricultural, I guess, rural requirements.
Thank you. Further discussion? Speaking against the motion, I believe as part of our event and sport tourism strategy that we're looking to encourage and enhance events in our community to build that, and I think this agriculture component is one of them that really is that foundation we always talk about in terms of supporting the agricultural industry. How we do that, we do have the history of trying to engage and support them, and I think we should be, and so there's the mayor's opinion. Councillor Wilbur.
I'm not against the motion, but in what you said, I'm wondering if maybe Love Dawson Creek and Tourism couldn't have a conversation together about maybe we can do a booth or something. I see they have a trade show, so maybe that's a way for us to participate and showcase our community.
Thank you. Councillor Rogers.
And maybe they'll get serious about putting in their application in Northern Development.
Thank you. Further discussion? You ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Sorry, I need to do that again. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, the motion's carried. 7.1, we have reports. Report 18170 from the corporate officer regarding our municipal election official results. Councillor Parslow.
Move that we receive for information.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Javetkov. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, I want to say, to Brenda and Cindy and all the staff and all the work that and the people who were involved in executing on the election, the advance, organizing, getting the information out, getting the orientation packages to the candidates, ensuring that, you know, you think about that, right? You just assume that this stuff is going to be handled in an effective, professional way with no issues around people saying and assuming there was a conflict or the perception that it was handled inappropriately. I think we sometimes just take that for granted, that our elections are going to be handled in a manner that gives confidence to the people in our community and region. And I think, honestly, I say this without any hesitation at all, that how these guys handle our election and the efficiency and the speed in which candidates were notified, and really the validity of that basic foundation of democracy is people having the confidence that their vote has been treated with the respect it deserves. So compliments to you guys and to all the folks who worked on it. Item 8.1 is our permissive tax exemption bylaw 4392 for consideration of adoption. Councilor Roger. No, I'm kidding. Councilor Javeka. Well, you were looking at me.
It's been 4 years. 4 years speaking against.
Councilor Javeka.
I move for adoption.
Move, seconded. Councilor Schumann, discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 8.2, zoning amendment bylaw 4395, 2018, for consideration of third reading and adoption. Councilor Schumann, Councilor Parslow, discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 8.3, we have zoning amendment bylaw number 1806 for consideration of third reading and adoption. Councilor Wilbur, Councilor Roger, discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 8.4, we have report number 18169 from the corporate officer regarding land sale bylaw 4397, 2018 for consideration of first three readings. This was our earlier public hearing. Councilor Parslow, seconded. Councilor Javeka. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Item 9, Mayor's Business. Thank you to Councilor Schumann for sitting in the chair last week, or 2 weeks ago, because I was away, and so I got a bit of catch-up to do as well on Mayor's Business. So I want to talk about the first item or two, the meeting of the Peace River Regional District area directors and local mayors in regards to the South Peace Business Directory. We launched this business directory through the South Peace Economic Development Commission. It's a business directory that helps us identify, first of all, and put a criteria around how we certify local businesses, who they are, and we always have heard that feedback in the past about Alberta and other businesses outside our community benefiting from the business that occurs in our community, and how could we find a way to build that support to our local businesses. And so we built this directory in partnership with Tumbler Ridge, Chetwynd, Pooskoopie in the rural areas. And so it's functioning along, and it's I think it's in its second year. We, through the city, get some funding from the Economic Development Commission to do some of that administration and ensure the certification is done appropriately and properly. We just had a follow-up meeting about 3 weeks ago with the mayors and the electoral area directors on the directory, and putting some more added push to it and ensure that we utilize it and use it in the manner to help promote our local businesses. The follow-up to that also as a second component is we formed the South Peace Health Services Society. We got the society into operation duly constituted earlier this year. We have the bylaws, we have the constitution. It's made up of the South Peace communities and the rural areas. The constitution outlines and identifies the allocation of directors from each of the communities and the areas to serve on that. It's a grassroots society representing our communities and regions for the benefit of providing and supporting initiatives around the proactive provision of health services for our region, in partnership with Northern Health and initiatives that we can do to help ensure that we provide an effective support mechanism for health services. Some of the issues that were identified were around accommodation, where people come to Dawson Creek from Tumbler Ridge, as an example, that come for their oncology treatment, their chemo treatment. They're here for a day or two and have to stay in the hotel, and it becomes very, very expensive for them. And so our first initiative that we're looking at is to purchase accommodation, a Ronald McDonald style of house, if I can use that term, and to move that forward so that we have the ability to provide short-term accommodation for people who are coming into Dawson Creek for their acute care, maternity services, oncology, those types of things, the orthopedic surgery. You know, we have examples where ladies are coming to Dawson Creek and having high-risk pregnancies, and from Fort Nelson or other smaller communities where they can't get maternity services. And so they're staying in the hotels here for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or longer. It becomes very expensive for them. And so this initiative really helps to provide that service of accommodation for people that will be much more reasonable. We got the support through the regional district as well as the communities, and we're moving through on that process. And this was just a follow-up meeting that we held as the mayors to ensure that we continue with that momentum and support in regards to that initiative of health services and the society. Councillor Wilbur's leading the kind of the momentum on charge on behalf of the city of Dawson Creek and our residents and through council to ensure that we make those connections. We've done numerous funding applications for different organizations to move it forward, and it's been very, very positive, and it's a really, I think, a really strong signal for the region of how we are working collaboratively to build initiatives around those quality of life, health, education, and economic opportunities. Councillor Wilbur, do you want to say anything about it?
Well, we're moving ahead on our bid for the house. We'll be contacting the ministers and stuff, and they mentioned they had money, so we're going after it. Hopefully we get it. But it's been a really strong bond for the South Peace and also with our First Nation neighbors. And so it's exciting, and yeah, we got some important meetings coming up. So I'm not going to say more than that until I know it's done.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, yes, please.
I understand there's such a facility in Prince George. I forget the name of it now, but what's it called?
Cordoban Lodge.
Yeah, that's
Through the
right.
cancer.
And I understand that there's considerable amount of money flows from the South Peace to that, according to my friend Leo Sobolski. So do you have any idea what is the amount of money that flows from donors from the South Peace to that?
Charlie, I met with the representatives of the Canadian Cancer Society for the region, and they talked about the Cordoban Lodge, and I did get some statistical information from them, and they were feeding that up. So I'll flow that back through to council and get some of that information.
I'm
Number
just
of
suggesting
residents.
that those sponsors may want to help this.
Yeah.
That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
And I just to add to that, that is for specific medical treatment to that house, where ours will be a little broader. So.
Even, we talked about the locums. When a doctor is away on vacation, he brings a locum in, and they struggle finding accommodation for them. Agency nurses. So there's a huge need we've identified, and certainly we're working away at trying to build that support in the region. About a month ago, I presented once again to the Treaty 8 Tribal Chiefs Association meeting. It's the organization representing of all the 7 Treaty 8 communities in northeastern British Columbia. And first, I wanted to go in and talk to them about the support we received from them and thank them for the letter of support they gave to us for the Dawson Creek and District Hospital that we 2 years ago when we were pushing and got that support from the Treaty 8 Tribal Association, and wanted to thank them for it. I also updated them on exactly these 2 previous items on the Southeast Business Directory, because I think the more we can build that partnership relationship with the Treaty 8 communities and engage them in it as well, that the stronger we'll be. And so we presented on the South Peace Business Directory as well as the South Peace Health Services Society. Both those topics were very well received by them, and they're both very interested in pursuing the opportunities with us, and I think that was a really positive message, and I really appreciated the opportunity to get in front of the Tribal Association. I attended the event at Northern Lights College a couple of weeks ago on the Orange Shirt Day, and that was the recognition of residential schools and the whole message around that for our communities, and was there to represent the city and that, and organized by Teresa Gladu and the college and business community, and Chief Callio from Kelly Lake was there, and so anyway, I was there and represented the city at that event. We attended the Seniors Day celebration at the Seniors Hall, and it was Seniors Day, and so we went and attended the lunch at the invitation of the seniors group, and great turnout, great event, and really, really fun to be there and engage with our seniors in our community who obviously take a whole bunch of pride in that facility down there that they're part of and all of the events that they partake in. And so I had a nice lunch with my bride and I, and I really enjoyed an hour or 2 with our seniors and letting them know how much we appreciate the value they provided to our community. Item 6 was the LNG Canada announcement, and so the LNG Canada had extended an invitation to myself on October 1st, the last board meeting, or whatever day it was, to go to an event at SFU downtown campus referred to as Beyond Borders, and it was talking about the LNG industry and the potential of it, and the impacts of the LNG industry and the natural gas industry and sector on Canada and British Columbia. And so then that afternoon I had planned to come back the next morning, and I was asked if it would be possible if I could stay over for the next morning to attend a breakfast meeting, and had to change my flights. And that evening, late that night, about 11 o'clock, LNG Canada made their final investment decision and the announcement. So I think I really sincerely appreciated the invitation to attend the Beyond Borders event, and did not know that LNG Canada were going to make that FID that day, that night, but I certainly was so appreciative of the opportunity to be there, represent our city and region, along with Mayor Ackerman from Fort St. John, who was also only Laurie's invitation. We both were there for the day on Monday, and not knowing we were going to be there for Tuesday, and so I had planned to stay over. I had a bag. Laurie had planned to go down for the day, so she didn't even have a travel bag with her, and so she had to go do a little shopping. But the way they engaged and involved us in northeastern British Columbia in that event, and I honestly say this, that when we were invited into the media announcement, the media release that was coming that morning, and Laurie and I met, and we go into the ballroom or the event where it was being announced, and they got 3 rows of chairs lined up for the dignitaries, and Laurie and I at the second row, and sitting in front of us is the Federal Minister of Finance, Morneau, and another federal minister, and to see Prime Minister Trudeau come in, and Premier Horgan, and Phil Germuth, the Mayor of Kitimat, and Chief Councillor Smith from Haisla. And it was pretty humbling to be in there, to be included in it, to be representing northeastern British Columbia, and we certainly appreciated that we were included and we were involved, and they recognized the importance of the natural gas sector to the liquefied natural gas industry. And even at that day, they had a bit of a celebration lunch, and we had to catch our flight, so we had to leave a bit early. And they even, LNG Canada, Susanna Pierce, took the opportunity to invite us to say a few words on behalf of northeastern British Columbia and the importance of our region. So, you know, I was really, honestly, I was really appreciative of how they did involve us and engage us. And it was a pretty cool event to be a part of on behalf of our city and our region. So I flew home Tuesday from that announcement, and was a little bit late to attend a meeting at the, organized by our Dawson Creek and District Hospital, our Dawson Creek and District physicians. And there was a meeting there of the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment, CAPE. And this is an organization of physicians who are very concerned about the implications of the development of the energy sector on residents and population. But it was, honestly, it was really very informative and very interesting to be there for a couple of hours to engage in that discussion, conversation, and the health concerns that are a part of the organization, CAPE, and our local physicians on the health effects of residents in regards to the development of the natural gas sector and the drilling and the fracking and all of that completions work and processing and methane emission, all of those concerns that are a part of health concerns by physicians. And so I was there for 2 hours, and very interested in listening to the concerns and understanding them. And as a result of that, I'm now going to move forward with some meetings with the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers and the industry, because people have to get the facts. People have to feel like they're getting the right information as they're making decisions and making opinions around the industry. And right now they're only getting what they feel is part of that. And I think we, all of us, have to do our part in ensuring that we help facilitate and organize and get information that people then can make informed decisions and opinions on. So I've reached out to CAP through Jeff Morrison. I'm going to do some presentations there. I'm going to meeting planned for Calgary in the next couple of weeks, and we will be following it up to ensure that we have some responsibility to here and help message the understanding of the industry and get some facts around that. We attended the in Canada Event Center 10th anniversary celebration a week or so ago, and so it was really good to be there for the day and participate in that 10-year anniversary, because sometimes you think this Canada Event Center is just a new facility for us, and it looks like it's a new facility, and you get that comment so many times from people. And so I really was appreciative of the opportunity, and my wife and I attended with our two granddaughters who were in town for the day, and it was Toonie Swim Day, and they had some climbing events, and our community services folks organized some stuff upstairs with some bouncy castles and some fun events for the kids. I want to thank them for that because my granddaughter brought home a whistle that I would have liked to have damaged somehow because it was pretty aggravating. I would have liked to have handed it back to Mr. McIver. But one of the things that we spent the time, the granddaughters went swimming for 2 or 3 hours that afternoon at the Toonie Swim. And what it was obvious to me was, it was families were there enjoying the afternoon of the Toonie Swim, and it was really evident, and it was really busy. And so I think there's a follow-up to what we did this summer in terms of that opening up that facility in ways to enhance the message about Toonie Swims, because we do that on a pretty regular basis, on a monthly basis, I think. And so it was just, honestly, it was really evident to me that that pool was busy, and there was that message around being very affordable for families that day was one that I think was evident to me. And anyway, I appreciate the invitation from the Ryan and the staff at the Encounter Event Center for including us in the celebration. We had a nice bit of cake and some hot dogs. Hot dog. I'd some.
I think it's impossible to eat more than one of those anyway.
And then last week we attended, I think it was last weekend, the weeks are climbing together, the Northern Lights College Official Trades Training Center building opening. And man, if you have not been in that new Trades Training Center, it is state of the art. It is an amazing addition to our city, our region, in terms of having a facility where people can go in and get state-of-the-art access to training for trades and carpentry and welding and all of those things, and it really is an amazing, we should be so proud of having that. And I knew it was a big deal when the provincial government announced it a couple of years ago, but when you drive up there now and you go in there and you see how what a great facility it is for us and the future for building the trades opportunities for residents and non-residents who will come here to get that training. It is a great facility, and everybody should take the opportunity to get down there and just have a little walk through, because it is fancy, dancy, high quality. We attended last week the South Peace Business to Business Expo, organized by Community Futures and sponsored by the South Peace Economic Development Commission, and we put some money in there on behalf of the economic development folks. It was about 40 or 50 attendees, I would say, at least, and really fun day, and I was only able to get there for the afternoon, participated in the mayor's and electoral area directors panel, and the closing keynote speaker was Andre Chevenier from the Timber Kings on the HGTV show out of Williams Lake, Pioneer Logs, and he talked for better than an hour. He was an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes. But Andre talked about his life story and the story of the Timber Kings business of the log home building. Him and his brother started 30-some years ago, and the evolution of that business and how they got into the HGTV TV show and how that impacted their community and their business and the region, and what he's been able to experience personally and through his family and the business of having a business that's recognized worldwide with customers worldwide, and some of the stories around that. And he said that in the message he was really promoting in terms of how you build a business and that trust and belief that you build a business and treating those people properly. And he's got the guys, Joel and Bernd and the other one, Peter, that been with him for 30 years, and they were what built his business, was the people. But his message about how important it was, and has been now for the city of Williams Lake and that Caribou region and the province of British Columbia, and it's raised the awareness of their community and the province and the world stage, and how there's a couple of entrepreneurs that started a business, the two of them, and built it into a world recognized entity. I thought was such a great job, and he really did captivate everybody that was there. And compliments to Sue and the Community Futures staff and all who were involved in the organization of it, and it was a great day. Before I go to the next items, I want to take up Councillor Javekov's item that he raised and made a motion. Councillor Parkville first, do you want to?
Yes, well, thank you for the comprehensive report. Number 7, Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment. I appreciate what you're doing there. Are you engaging the medical health officer for our region in that? The reason I'm asking that is anybody who's read Andrew Nikiforovic's book called Saboteurs will know there's been some extensive work done by this in Alberta, and there's been some actions taken, especially in southern Alberta, and I just think there's a role for our medical health officer to be involved.
Yeah, I think for me it's for this kind of this first realization of, you know, the first, but I mean we need to make sure that people are getting appropriate, accurate, and information to make opinions and decisions, and sometimes they're only getting one message from specific interest groups, and I think it's such a critical industry for our city, our region, and our province as one component of the economic opportunities. We need to build that information base, and I think first is the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, because industry have a responsibility on it, and then engage those other stakeholders. Councillor Parslow, I think Northern Health or another organization that have some responsibility in there, the Petroleum Services Association. There's different organizations, and I think I'm going to start kind of from this perspective of saying we need to help provide community organizations and community groups with access to the expertise that exists within the industry to be able to answer some of those specific questions. There was some discussion took place that night on the technical components of drilling completions and hydraulic fracturings. I don't know that much about it. I'm woefully unprepared and unqualified to speak to that. But what I do know about it was they weren't getting the accurate information that night, and so we need to help get that accurate information for opinion leaders in our community, and I think Northern Health are one of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why I appreciate your approach to it. I just say there's quite a bit out there.
You bet. So CN and Councillor Javetkov raised a motion forward that we bring forward an issue to CN in regards to the noise.
Yeah, so I'd like to make a motion that we make a formal request from Mayor and Council to CN to ask them if they can consider some sort of reduction in noise levels with their safety warnings and stuff when they're going through the residential area. And I can discuss it a bit more if we get a seconder.
Sure. Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Parslow. And so first of all, I think the technical aspect of that, as I understand it, for 17th Street, any of the crossings that are not controlled by electronic crossing lights and warnings and gates, the Transportation Safety Board regulates that, what they have to do to provide that audible signal to the traffic. So 17th Street, 15th Street have to be horned at a certain number of times when they're crossing it. Duncan?
Through your worship, yeah, they have internal policies and whistle cessation, and there's varying engineering and factors that contribute to how many times they have to blow their whistle. Kevin spoke with CN last year about this, as we had received some concerns from residents on 17th and in that area, and they provided us a copy of their policy. And Kevin, you remember that conversation?
Yeah.
So let's use the motion, and then we can bring back some additional information. I don't want it to speculate on it.
Yeah.
So Councillor Rogers and then Councillor Javetkov.
You know, didn't City of Mission just pass a resolution or something like that there would be no more noise or something like that? And then also, Councillor Wilbur just mentioned to me that if you want no whistle, you have to actually have the crossing guards and
You have to have the gates
City
and the
pays for
signals.
that.
Yeah. Anyway, let's we've got the motion to move it forward for further information, and that'd be a good topic, I think, for us to have that information. And then if there is specific implications to us financially for infrastructure or whatever, then that can go part of the budget discussion. Councillor Javetkov.
Yeah, so, you know, I've had a number of complaints during my campaign process here, but I think what the public would like, what the taxpayers would like, is to see that the mayor and council are actually asking for a noise reduction in noise levels. You know, the policies are the policies. The actual activities, I've been up there, I've witnessed it myself because I've got a son that lives north of the tracks there, and you can have one train that comes by and does their policy-driven warnings, and another one, and it's, not bad, it's little short spurts of whistle, and another one that's got the thing jammed wide open for 10 seconds, 5 times. Like it's, there's an approach, I guess, a recognition that, we all appreciate the safety, and I've been involved in close calls myself, so I appreciate the safety whistles, but there's different ways of handling it. And if it's a formal request from the mayor and council, then maybe they'll have some consideration, and maybe it'll only last for a few months, but it's something that we need to keep dealing with. We've got train tracks that run through the middle of town. They're not going away.
And these guys, and you're exactly right, like the sound is evident throughout the community, it's everywhere, so. Councillor Wilbur?
No, I agree with having that discussion with them, getting more information, but usually those very long blasts are because some jerky driver is trying to get in front of the train and across those tracks before they have to stop and wait.
That may
That's
be-
the only time they hold down on that.
Or he's just trying to wake everybody up.
I live up on the
All
hill, so I
right,
know.
we'll move forward with the request. Any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Parslow.
It just might be good for staff to reference what happens in White Rock with the Burlington and Santa Fe rail line. They have daytime policies and nighttime policies, but they don't have roads crossing. It's just pedestrian crossings, but just for further information.
Thank you. Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that. 9.2 is a motion I'd like to bring forward, and as I've presented to the Treaty 8 Tribal Association, and I met with Fort Nelson First Nations and a number of the First Nations communities in terms of enhancing and building the relationship, partnership with our Treaty 8 neighbors. One of the things that was kind of struck me as a comment that when I was at Fort Nelson First Nation by one of the community leaders, and so it got me to thinking about it. And so we are part of the Treaty 8 Tribal Association. We are in the lands of the traditional territory of Treaty 8. And so what I'd like to bring forward is a request from Council that we install a flagpole, a third one, and fly a Treaty 8 flag beside our city flag and our Canada flag. And so I want to bring that forward, and there is a cost associated with that. Duncan?
It's approximately $4,500.
Thank you. So I'm bringing that by way of a motion to council for consideration.
I'll second that.
Councillor Schumann. Discussion. And funding from?
Economic development?
Thank you.
Well, I like the idea very much, so
We got to source the money from somewhere, and I've
as long
got,
as it's coming out of your budget
yeah,
area, that's
I got a
fine
little
with
bit
me.
left, and that'll tie my hands for doing anything else the rest of the year. You guys will be happy about. No, I'm teasing. Further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that. I
idea.
say this honestly. This really, I think, a really strong message to our community and to our neighbors about representing that message of respect and reconciliation and partnership and all of that. 9.3, we got a late letter from Richard Truman, who's the Director of External Relations from Geoscience BC. The Geoscience are a really good, I think, organization who do a lot of really strong, when I talked about putting information together with industry, here's an organization that does that research work and provides that expertise in so many data analytical science basis, and they get funding from the province every year, and so they're just asking us to provide a letter of support to the province for that funding.
I'd like to
Councillor
move
Parsons?
that.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Schumann. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 9.4, this is the appropriate time for me to, as the last meeting of this council, and as we had the election, we had a couple of councillors who decided that they were had enough of us. I'm
That's
teasing.
not what they said.
Have served our community and have served the city and served the residents, Anybody who has never had the opportunity to sit in these chairs, it's a experience in so many ways, both very, very positive, very, very strong, and lots of challenges and lots of work. And people who make the assumption that it isn't that, you need to walk a mile in shoes sometimes, and it is that. And so with Councillor McFadden, who's retired and decided that the 10 years or so was enough, has moved on. And I want to say how much I got to know Terry really well just before starting on council, and he's been an absolute gentleman and an absolute joy for us to have as part of council, and he brings that representation and that experience to us, and has always been exactly that, dependable and reliable to members of council. And I want to tell him how much I've appreciated him being here and supporting this council and me and all of the last 5 years. And I'm sure I speak on my predecessors of MLA Bernier, who was in the chair before, how much we've appreciated his work towards the community and the city. Councillor Rogers, who's done his 4 years of service, and certainly I say this without hesitation, Mark's been as hard a worker and as a dedicated, get a hold of the bone and go hard on it as we could have ever seen or appreciated. And certainly that hard work and enthusiasm towards the role of council has been absolutely of value to our community. And I look at NDIT as an example. When I first started, I didn't know about NDIT, and I certainly didn't have the time to put into it that you have. And that alone has been a huge, huge benefit to our community and our region. And all of the other things that you brought, the Youth Advisory Council and some of the initiatives around sport for the kids and the business community, all of those things have been really, really valuable input. People, I don't think, sometimes see this democracy, this organization, as what it is, and it's people who come and represent what their interests are and what their passion are. And that's the great part about democracy, is you have people who come with their perspective. And I say this to you guys, and I've said it in closed doors and behind your backs. This council has been unbelievable in the last term to me about, we've been split 4-3 than ever any humanly possible board should have ever been able to accomplish. But what I've loved about what has transpired and what it's got into is people come prepared, they work hard, they give their input, they have great debate, they have great discussion, and then at the end of the day, the motion's made, the vote is taken, and these people walk out of here supporting the majority. Whatever side of the vote they were on, they leave here supporting the majority. And shouldn't that is what we expect? People represent their interests, represent what they know, represent their beliefs and values, and then at the end of the day support the majority of council. And that's what I've appreciated so much about this group, and I'm really appreciative of being the mayor in this role. So I thank you to Councillors McFadden and Rogers. Councillor Schumann has done her thing under Councillor Business, and so I want to reiterate the last of that for Cheryl in terms of how much I've appreciated working with you and your support, your input. Straight as an arrow in terms of the things that Cheryl believes in and how she's represented our community and those beliefs. That's what it should be. That's what people get elected to do. And I sincerely have appreciated working with you over the last 5 years. And I want to wish you the very best in your future, whatever that may be. So we have some gifts of appreciation for our departing councillors, and that was Councillor McFadden and Rogers. We never can plan for the results of the election, so we will have a gift for Councillor Schumann at the next meeting, and we'll have that put together for you. So, do I have those gifts?
They're on tabs desk.
And I'll just grab them.
This item,
Okay, quick, meeting adjourned, everybody.
this item here, CN. Where is it?
Councillor McFadden,
Item
Sir?
11-1.
come on up here, buddy. Yeah, it's coming. Thank you. Thank you. Get in here, buddy.
I thought you were going to start off with a, you know.
Here's your hug. Your gifts later.
You get a gift, just so you know.
So with that, I want to take a
There's no gifts.
Councillor Parslow.
Sorry, can I just make a comment about the consent calendar, item 11.1?
Well, I was going to break and then come back
Okay, fine.
because we've been a little over an hour and we need to have a break. So we'll take a
Okay.
7-minute recess.
Good.
Thank you. Back to order, and our next item on the agenda is our diary. Nothing?
Nothing
Diary?
to update, your worship.
Thank you. Consent calendar. Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we could make representation through you to the regional district that we try to acquire this land as a regional pathway. Other communities have got abandoned railways lines. I don't know how they have acquired them, but you know, for running, for cycling, for walking, thinking the whole boundary region, the Stwymelt to Leechtown, the Galloping Goose Trail. I think the mayor of Poostupi talked about this once, didn't they? But I just see this as an opportunity for CN to leave a legacy.
Yeah, so the regional district are through the Parks Committee are doing a study on, a planning study on a connective trail up in the north piece in Charlie Lake, Fort St. John, and the south piece between Poots and Dawson as part of the regional plan of regional parks. And so that's a great idea, and we can certainly follow that up with CN and the province, because the only aspect to this that I wasn't sure of, and I'm going to ask for some follow-up on it through the province, is the agreement that they had with BC Rail when they purchased the railway for northeastern British Columbia, was they have a lease for 99 years on it. So there's some component in there that I actually want to follow up as a side, but that's a great topic, and I'm happy to do that. So do we need a motion to that for the direct the mayor to follow that up under consent? Can we do that?
Yeah, we do need a motion for the consent
Yes.
in itself, but.
And then make a motion behind it.
Direction for you to follow up.
Thank you.
as well.
So move to receive the consent. Councillor Parslow, second to Councillor Wilbur. Discussion? All in favor? And then you can make a motion that we'll refer to follow up with CN for, and through the parks, I think through the regional district, through the parks.
Right.
Through Poos and Area D to pursue the acquisition of that property.
Yeah. So move.
Perfect. Thank you. Second it? Councillor Schumann. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that. Strategic priorities?
Nothing to
Okay.
update, your worship.
Thank you. Media questions? Thank you. Committee of the Whole, our first item of business is 14.1. Our staff sergeant wasn't able to be here. Our staff sergeant is here this morning, and welcome, Damon. And do we have a mic?
That's what I was just looking for.
I can certainly talk loud, so.
We just capture this on as it's recorded for.
I could reach your mic.
I'll give you a mic.
I can't get it coming up.
You just speak. You presented it.
I don't like this at all.
Now, if you could just hum a few
Yeah.
bars to begin.
All right, can you hear me okay?
That's great.
Yes, very, yeah, that's great. Well, first of all, congratulations to the newly elected. I'm looking forward to working with you over the next 4 years. And to those that are moving on, it's been short, but it's been a pleasure for the last 2 months. Thank you for your service to the city, and I wish you the best in your future endeavors. Do you all have a copy of the report in front of you?
Yes, we do.
Perfect, so I'll work my way through that. This report covers the period of June 1st of this year to September 30th of this year, so about 4 months. Our resourcing, we've had 2 members transferred during this reporting period, Sergeant Chahill and Constable Lake. We've received 1 recruit. He came in on August 31st, and he's currently completing his RFT, his recruit field training, which is about 6 months, so he'll be done end of February. At present, we have, or at the time of this report, we had 3 hard vacancies. By hard vacancy, I mean that those bodies have left and new ones have not yet come in. 3 recruits have been ordered. They're expected here on or before December 2018. I do have the trainers in place to take on those new recruits. 2 corporal positions have been advertised for promotion provincially. Those will be closing this week on October 24th. And Corporal Tara Mason has just recently taken over our GIS section. So I'll go through this, and if you have any questions at the end, certainly feel free to ask them. So I'll move on to the crime trends over the reporting period. So for the year, pardon me, this is since January 1st of 2018, we've had a total for the city of 5,553 calls. That's about 78% of our total calls. Within the city of Dawson Creek, rural communities, we've had 1,548, or 22%. Comparative to last year for the same time period, it's an increase of calls for the city of 3.2%, a decrease of calls in the rural area of 12.1%. Some of the crime trends that I documented for you. Theft of vehicles, there's been a significant decrease of 35%. Theft from vehicle, again, another decrease of 20%. Break and enter to residence, into a home, a decrease of 9%. Break and enter into a business, an increase of 213%. So I'm going to stop right there really quickly and just address that with you. Quite a significant increase in commercial break and enters within the city. That's an increase of 32 break and enters this year compared to last year. So 32 more break and enters during this reporting period this year. Some of those break and enters were 4 or 5 in the same night. These break and enters had a similar MO, that being the front glass door was smashed. The suspect went in, grabbed money from the till and came back out. This suspect, or those suspects, were usually hitting 4 or 5 at the same night, and this went on for about 3 or 4 weeks. So that significantly increased the number of break and enters that we had. That's why the numbers have jumped so high, or increased so greatly. Those particular MO break and enters have not occurred since the end of September. So from the end of August to the end of September, we were getting a lot of those break and enters. The same MO with the glass door smashed in and things taken out of the business has not happened since September 27th. What we've done to deal with that, we have brought the bait card program into Dawson Creek. Again, my opinion is the same people that are doing break and enters are the same people that are stealing vehicles, the same people that are breaking into vehicles. So part of the way that we're dealing with that is we've made steps to bring the bait card program to Dawson Creek. We'll have that up and running by the end of this week. So we're going to have a bait car here in Dawson Creek. Do you all know what bait car is, or do I need to explain that? Yeah? Okay. Yes? Okay. So a bait car is, it's run by Impact BC. It's all the BC provincial police forces use the bait car. And the bait car is basically a decoy vehicle. It's set up with cameras. It's set up with a GPS tracker. As soon as someone accesses the bait car vehicle, so we'll put that vehicle somewhere other than the Dawson Creek area. As soon as someone accesses that vehicle, they open a door, they start the engine, we're notified. We're given live GPS coordinates, we're able to follow it, and when we're able to get into a position where we have the vehicle, we can shut the engine off. So we can remotely shut the vehicle down and take a suspect into custody. So something that's been used for many years. You can actually look at YouTube videos of bait car and see people in the cars, and it's very effective. And I think it's going to be very good for the city of Dawson Creek. We've increased our night patrols by member, making sure the members are out and visible. We've enacted some other investigative aids that I can't go into specifically, but I will be able to report on at a later date. The city can really help out by encouraging participation in volunteer programs such as COPS or Rural Crime Watch. So I met with Rural Crime Watch last week, and we discussed how we can help each other out and how we can benefit their program. So we're going to be working closely with them. I'm going to meet with COPs later on this week or hopefully next week. Moving on, assaults, an increase of 24%. Sex assaults, a decrease of 20%. Drug possession and trafficking, a decrease of 11%. Drug overdose, a significant decrease of 67%. Impaired driving, an increase of 20%. Motor vehicle accidents, a significant decrease again of 45%. Thefts, which includes shoplifting, an increase of 20%. And again, mental health, I'm going to address this very quickly with you, a significant increase of 238%. So last year, same time period, we had 21 calls for service. This year we had 71. That's a big difference. Just to let you know what mental health calls mean to us, substantial police resources are expended in mental health calls. Usually that requires us going and taking someone into custody under Mental Health Act. If we take someone under the Mental Health Act, the Mental Health Act requires us to stay with that person until the doctor releases us. Sometimes that's anywhere between 1 hour and 6 hours. So having to guard or secure someone for 6 hours while we're waiting for a doctor expends substantial police resources. So this is something that's of concern to me that we need to look at. I was surprised when I saw that number. We looked into it. Our preliminary investigations found that there's been a substantial increase in director's warrants. Director's warrants are when a doctor feels that someone is a threat to themselves or someone else, and they issue a warrant for us to go pick them up under the Mental Health Act. There's been a substantial increase in director's warrants since last year. I don't know why yet, but it's something I'm going to be following up with the hospital to find out why. Perhaps it's a new doctor that's issuing more director's warrants. I don't know. But I'm going to find out why, and I should be able to report back on that later on. I'm not going to go over all the investigations of interest, but I just want to point out a couple. On August 14th of 2018, we were contacted by the Beaver Lodge RCMP and alerted that 2 stolen skid steers were geotagging to the Dawson Creek area. We attended the location, conducted an investigation, and during that identified the 2 stolen skid steers as well as 3 stolen trucks and numerous other stolen items. 2 persons were arrested. They were charged. They're currently before the courts. Over $300,000 worth of stolen property were recovered. So it's a pretty good seizure for the Dawson Creek RCMP.
I was in on that one.
Were you arrested?
Arrested?
I wasn't going to mention names.
You don't want to clarify that.
No, I'll just leave it like that.
This is his new job. He's got a new job. It's doing skid steers.
One other one I'd like to point out. Actually, I'll point out 2 more. September 23rd, 2018, we were informed of a break-and-enter in progress at the Peace County Automotive on 17th Street. We located the suspect vehicle with 3 suspects. They were in the process of stealing and had stolen solar energy batteries. A total of 21, I believe it was, 23. They were all arrested and they're charged in before the court. So that one's important to me because that one we became aware of because someone saw it happening and called us. And that's really what we need. That's what we need community members to do, is to actually call things in and report it to us. That's again why COP, Citizens on Patrol, or Rural Crime Watch is very beneficial. We can't cover the entire city by ourselves, so we rely on people to give us calls so we can investigate that. So this is a perfect example of that. Someone saw it happening, they called us, we actioned it, we got those batteries back, and someone was charged. So the last one I'll point out, September 26th, we were on patrol. We noticed suspicious activity outside the North Winds Lodge. Members conducted surveillance. As a result, gained a suspicion of drug activity occurring inside one of the units. The occupants of the room were arrested. A search warrant was drafted, and an execution of that search warrant identified a large amount of drugs, including fentanyl, crack cocaine, meth, scales, score sheets, and money. 2 persons were charged with numerous drug trafficking-related charges under the CDSA. That is rural, but it still affects the city of Dawson Creek, so it was a good seizure for us. This isn't in your reports, but I added it to my own just to mention to you, just so you know. To date, for this reporting period, 170 charges have been submitted to the courts. Comparative to last year, we submitted 174, so pretty much the same. Year to date, this year, we have submitted 432 charges to the courts. compared to last year was 385, so we've submitted about 50 more charges, give or take. That's about all I have for you. I'm going to touch on one thing quickly because I expect I'm going to be asked on it, so I'm going to put the chicken before the egg right now and just comment on the Soldiers of Odin. So Soldiers of Odin have come up in the media and on the social media in Dawson Creek, so I want to address it with you really quickly. Soldiers of Odin have been operating in Alberta for about 12 months. The RCMP are aware of them. We have been monitoring them in Alberta simply because they're a new group and we wanted to know what they were doing. Predominantly, they were operating in Edmonton and Grand Prairie. They just recently moved into the BC area, and they've been recruiting within Dawson Creek. To my knowledge, there is no chapters that are set up in Dawson Creek. Over the year that they've been operating in Alberta, there has been no indication of any kind of criminal element associated to that group. There also has been no criminal element associated to the self-proclaimed members that are within Dawson Creek right now. At this time, I do not believe that there's any concern for public safety in relation to that group or their recruiting efforts within Dawson Creek. That's all I have for you today. Pending any questions?
Thank you, Damon. Councillor Parslow.
Well, thank you. A great report. An interesting report. During the election, the Mirror raised a question about crime. So these questions all relate to that initiative of the Mirror. How you develop a crime reduction strategy on a yearly basis or a quarterly basis?
Yeah, so we set our strategic priorities at the beginning of the fiscal year. So typically they're in place for April 1st. I will be in consultation with the staff here at the city, with yourselves in regards to setting our strategic priorities for next year. And I've actually been talking to the mayor about it, so we'll start those discussions perhaps in November and December to start building our strategic priorities for next year.
So do you have some consultation with the public at large about as you formulate this, or the victims of crime, etc.?
In the past, I don't believe that that's been done here in Dawson Creek. That certainly can be done. I know that, again, in speaking with the mayor, we were talking about doing a town hall. Certainly, I'm open to that. And we can provide all the numbers, the statistics, what's happening, where it's happening. But building the priorities for the city of Dawson Creek should include citizens of the city of Dawson Creek and our partner agencies and organizations.
So just to follow up to that, so we had, Damon and I have had some conversations about that and building that police safety plan. It's a strategic document that comes from the force down through to detachments. We'll give our input into it and engage council in it. And then I really like the idea of engaging the community in it. We didn't get into that structure this year just because of earlier this year with the movement of our staff sergeant and the gap that existed there. So we just adopted the strategies from the previous year. Go ahead.
Second, I shared with you last time I met you that I have a lot of family in the RCMP. I asked them in response to the question posed by the Mirror what strategies they have found useful in Surrey about crime reduction, and they talked about the road cameras, the intersection cameras. It's surprising how much offshoot benefit from those traffic cameras you get for other crimes. I don't think we have any in this community. Saturday I spent with friends in Grand Prairie, and they're all over the place. What's your view on the benefit of traffic cameras as a crime reduction strategy?
They're great, and I have been thinking about that as well. So, to my knowledge, Dawson Creek does not have any. Coming from Williams Lake just set them up. So over the past year, I believe, the city has funded and installed intersection cameras at strategic points throughout the city, and they've been extremely useful and beneficial for the RCMP and for police in the community. And I have nothing but good things to say about them, so it's something that I'll be talking to the city about for sure.
Okay.
Good. Go ahead.
Last one. So can I infer from your report that the 3 vacancies you've been guaranteed, that you've got people coming from Regina to fill those positions?
I have guaranteed 3 recruits that are going to be here before the end of December.
Okay, thank you.
And just following up on that, I have a meeting on Wednesday, I think, with the Chief Superintendent Bain, just to ensure that we talk about staffing and recruitment and filling of the vacancies that exist here for Damon on the detachment. I've heard the commercial crime stuff, and I've heard from businesses, and we've got some feedback from certainly John Deere, who had 2 or 3 major thefts occur from there. So we want to make sure we support our local detachment, and so I've got a meeting on Wednesday with this Chief Superintendent. Chief Superintendent, is that the right?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Councillor
Just to
Wilbur.
address the vacancies as well, I'll just mention that our Sergeant Nancy Chahill is our ops support NCO. She's since gone, moved. That position was advertised for promotion. It's that promotion has completed, that staffing action's completed. Her replacement has been named. It's Corporal Brian Hermadnik from Caslow. He is going to be coming here as the new sergeant, and I expect that we'll have him within the next 6 weeks. So 4 incoming before the end of December.
Thank you. Councillor Wilbur?
Yeah, I just want to follow up to something that was brought up to us during our candidate debate, and I don't know if the other councillors that were there want to talk to it too. But we had a young lady that had come forward, and I know staff's gotten a hold of you about a particular address. But she was, in her opinion, she had phoned the RCMP and was told it wasn't a crime issue, that she could phone bylaw. And so the neighborhood hasn't really gotten any response to this particular house in their neighborhood. I take it they're cleaning it up, bylaw's gone, and they're cleaning up the property, but we have these particular houses all over the community. So how can the neighbors help, and what can we give back to them as information? So it's obviously there's crime going on. There's traffic, they're seeing things, they're undesirable properties. And so it seems almost like a catch-22, like there's not enough information for this, but yet it really doesn't fall under that. So what can the community do that are living next to these houses, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, I can tell you that most of the properties that you're referring to are already being watched by us. So I'm familiar with the residents, or the residents that you're speaking of. We're already aware of it. That said, we've received 0 calls on it in the last year. So certainly citizens should be encouraged to call the police and report any suspicious activity. Anytime that we receive a call, we open a file. So that particular residence, we've had no calls since January, because I checked. That means that no one is calling us about it. Perhaps they're assuming that other people are calling, and their neighbors are calling, or they're talking to people like call the police, but they're not actually making that call. So certainly encourage people to call the police. We'll make a file, and a result of that call, we'll follow up with the residents. Shame on me, I haven't actually met the bylaw officers yet. So I need to get out there and do that, and I'll make that a priority this week. And I'll touch base with them and make sure that we're on the same page on how to deal with those properties. So.
All right. No, that's great. I just wanted to give some feedback, and so they know that we are aware, we've made you aware, and bylaws aware. And perfect. Thank you very much.
Councillor Roger?
Actually, that's a good point about calling, because I can give an example that it was with hydro. The hydro was out, I lived out in Rolla at the time, and the hydro was out all day. And then it was out half of the night, and Louise came home from work, and I said, our power's still out. And so she calls hydro. They were unaware of it because nobody had called it in. So we sat there for a day and a half with no power. So, and it's just something that my dad always said to me. If you see somebody that needs help, chances are they do. If you think that you should make a phone call and report something, then do it. It's pretty simple. Part of being in the community.
Yeah, you bet. Anything further for Staff Sergeant Oral? Damon, thanks so much. We really appreciate it. Obviously, you're in our community, and Mom and the 3 boys are now settled, so hi-ho, hi-ho.
We're officially residents.
Good
yes.
job. Anyway, thank you. It's good to have you here, and we appreciate it, and we look forward to the future of public safety for the community.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Do it.
14.2, we have a report from our corporate officer. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Why,
Nice to have you here today.
Great to be here. First of all, I want to thank all of my staff for assisting with the election. I couldn't have done it without, especially Elisa and Cindy. We had a real fun time. Really good group of election workers there. They're all experienced, and it's a very long day, but we do make it fun. And candidates also, they were very good at complying with all the regulations that are there set before them. So it makes it easier for us. So thank you to everyone. We did add about 500 new voters to our list, so that was some good information. We're now up to about 7,600 on our list, which I would have liked a better turnout, but it was increased from last election, so can't really complain. Now moving on, we'll begin working with our orientation session and inaugural meeting coming up. The next item I have is community awards. I want to bring attention to that. I did miss one of the awards in my report, the Inclusive Workplace of the Year. That one we still need to have nominations for. So if I can get council's help, deadline is today at 4:30. So if you can reach out and help with those nominations, that would be appreciated.
Safely.
And I think that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Councillor Parslow?
I noticed that in your purchase in tenders section, that I'm surprised that there was no bids received for a short box crew cab 2018-20 and the 2018-24 no bids. Is that because the suppliers can't get those trucks, or they got so much business that they just ignored them? These
That
things.
question I can't answer.
I find it strange.
Through your worship, Kevin was working on that tender, and often it's timing and what the dealerships within the community are working on. Sometimes they're not aware, or sometimes there's changeovers in staff and they're not aware of our site or the Civic Info where we post many of these tenders. Kevin, any other comments on that?
Yeah, and we try to make sure that all the vendors in the community, whether it's for vehicles or other, are signed up online, so they, as soon as a tender goes out, they get automatically notified, and that way they don't get missed. So it could have been a number of factors. They definitely can supply it, but for whatever reason, they never bid on.
So what's the next steps then?
So if we don't have any bids, then we have an ability to go out and actually shop for prices.
Okay. Last
ahead.
question. 2018-19, what's the nature of the work that was awarded to Avia NG? Is that some engineering or something? Or?
Through your worship, Patrick can probably follow up through his committee of the whole, but if you
Sure.
recall, there was a report to council with the recommendation and approval to move forward with the engineering and the public consultation piece with the runway extension.
what
I believe the budget was a couple $100,000, but I'll let Patrick get into that when he has his committee of the whole.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything further for Brenda? I just want to point out, and so we take that initiative and we have with the barbecue at the exhibition grounds, and I certainly have taken the attempt to get local businesses engaged in it because it is a benefit to me as part of our economic development, and I always kind of wait for the wind up of the costs of the rental and the food and things, but so this year we had almost all covered by sponsorships, and there's the local business people supporting us in initiatives to help make that connection with senior industry folks and business, or our local businesses, and we support the exhibition, and I think there's another real positive for us to see that happen. So thank you for that. Any other questions for Brenda? Thank you, Brenda. 14.3, we have a report from our Chief Financial Officer. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here today.
Thank you very much. This is my first committee of a whole report, so I'm pretty pleased to present. First of all, I would like to thank Janet and the financial team for being an amazing support during this transition. We are still in transition. Although, I moved to this position on middle of July, we have two key players that one is still missing, one of our financial analysts, and the other one just moved in and left, which was Selma. Was a great support during the budget. So I really appreciate Janet and the team's support. I will highlight some of the key activities that we are having in our department. One of them is not mentioned here, but is in progress right now, which is the 2019 budget. We have already started the process of collecting information from the different departments. This new person that started in our department right now collecting and putting together what will be the potential first draft. At the same time, I'm working on preparing the budget assumptions that we are going to give on November 19. So as part of the startup of the process. The other thing that is mentioned in this report that I think it's important to bring is about the water rates. Janet and I had a chance to go through a refresher training of the software where we start to combine data from like the asset replacement and then what is the current revenue we've been collecting through the water, and then the expenditures in the last couple of years so that we can have a suggested rate increase. So right now, Janet is actually working on putting those data in the system, and we hope by early November, and during the time also of our assumption discussion of the budget, we will be able to start to bring a tentative increased rate. And the other thing that also we've been, as part of the whole tax process, regarding to the mobile homes. I know previous years we already started a campaign to try to reduce the impact of the delinquencies amount on mobile homes. We have already sent the first letter and second letter to our mobile homes, those that are with outstanding balance, and we are gonna move to send to the collectors, and then the next step, if we are not able to collect, send to the small claim court. Other than that, I am, if you have any questions, I'm available to answer.
Thank you, Flavia. Questions? Thank you.
Welcome.
Good job.
Thank you.
Next up, we have a report from the General Manager of Community Services. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
Should be good now.
There we go, green. Good morning, Your Worship.
Good morning.
There we go. So first, I'd like to thank Council Departures, Council Terry and Council Mark and Council Cheryl. We're going to miss you in the Recreation Department and our Community Service Department for sure. You've been huge advocates for us, as are all council. But I think probably, Terry, my first meeting with you was at Hug-a-Mug before you started to run. 10 years went pretty quick.
Still there.
You're still there. And Cheryl, 10, and Mark, 4 for you. So thank you very much from the department. My family's venturing into that realm today. My brother's running for mayor in Ontario, and we'll just see how that goes today. May have to up it up to an MLA or something. So lots in our department. We only report out for probably a third of our department. Lots of fire statistics, very basic reporting out from Shorty. Nothing alarming there. Those statistics are from May to September, so if there's anything specific there, I can certainly get back and get some questions from the chief. A lot of activity in the Memorial Arena of note there. One of the things that we did do this year was we've condensed our schedule on the weekend. to make it more effective. We're only running one shift on the weekend on the Saturday, Sunday, to alleviate some of the pressures there once teams start to travel. It's a much more effective system and saves a shift and some operational dollars there. A lot of things happening in the recreation department. Recent NBRCRA meetings, which was very significant, a large attendance this year. A lot of interest or a lot of discussion around the Fernie experience and the learnings and the reviewing of better practices. Of note, Megan Pickett has moved on as well, so that posting is out, and we wish Megan very well as she moves on to her career with Northern Lights College. And most of the things that are happening in the department are highlighted are summer things that happened, but I think one of note was the Shell program. The Shell Summer in the Park was very active. And Mel and the crew participated with our recreation staff to speak to families, speak to people in the communities about recycling, and a great activity to be in the park, and we thank Shell for that. Lots of programs around this fall. Not a lot of numbers there that we can, if you have any questions specific. But of note, I think is critical is that we've met our revenue targets to date of 99% in the recreation department. And a lot of that is through partnerships, which are critical, that any of the funding supported that we get offsets our operational costs and delivers recreation for ages right across the community. And specifically, there's a number of different programs that we've reached out to both youth and seniors in our program. I wanted to talk a little bit about the recreation numbers before you. I do have some additional information on the summer program with the free swim. Very successful in the sense of people participating. There was about $94,000 of value of the free swim, although that's not directly, it's per unit cost is how we tried to capture that. But some really good statistics that we'll provide through our budgeting process if council decides on some of the decisions as we move forward with that, what that looked like. But basically, when you broke it into units in 2016, we had over 6,084 participants. And then we had closure at the Rotary Lake in 2017. We had 9,559 participants. And this summer, with the free swim, there were 13,039. And of significance there mostly was the increase of family. And we also did do a little bit of capturing of some numbers, although specifically not rural numbers that were harder to capture. But out of town, of the individual free swims, and from August 17th to the 31st, we had 265 out of town participants at the pool. So a number of reasons of that were tourists through the town, people coming for summer visits, taking advantage of the pool, and certainly in our capturing of the results of that, we've got some good data for moving forward as well. If there's anything specific too, I can just comment that I too am on my way out the door as my second round of maybe rewiring, refiguring. Thanks to council that are all aware of that, and my staff are now aware as well. But I somehow look that we're not leaving, we're just moving to another side of that, and look very forward in working with the event tourism side of that, and the passion that I do hopefully bring to that. It's been 11 years and a great run. And as my wife said, if I decided to move anywhere else but Dawson Creek, I was moving by myself. So we hopefully are here for a long time. So any specific questions to that, Councillor?
Yeah, so participating at the Seniors Day at the Seniors Hall there was a lot of questions around the recycling from our seniors, and I'm just wondering if there's any plans for further. I know being in the parks this summer and stuff was great, but is there any plans for any workshops or anything else to help the citizens understand better what goes into the carts, and like little in-services or workshops or anything? And I mean, they were asking for that kind of thing at the senior center, so I was just curious if there's any more plans for any more educational type activities around the recycling.
So I'll jump in on this one. So through your worship, if you recall, when we brought the recycling program forward, we had a bit of a communication strategy of how we were going to map it out within the community and make sure everybody was aware of the carts and when they were coming and their days and the different products that can be recycled. Now that we've implemented the program, we've had some early success. We've had some large numbers, but it's apparent that we'll probably need to continue on with a bit of a different communication plan. I'd like to bring something to council as far as mapping that out, how we did a similar process as before, showing where we're going to go. There's a lot of ideas right now. There's been people requesting that we ride around in the trucks and check containers, and you know, there's been suggestions of fines, and there's a few different strategies, and we just want to make sure that we take a strong approach and a strategic approach, kind of focus. So we'll bring something forward to council, laying out how we're going to move forward with the recycling program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions for Barry? Councillor Parslow?
Well, just a comment, there will be a need for that. I know of other Peace Region communities are now considering abandoning their recycling because of all the mounting costs and problems. So what you said is very necessary. Fernie, you mentioned Fernie in passing, you know, the unfortunate accident that happened there. Are we to expect a budget request to move over from Ammonia at the Encounter Event Centre to the Freon system?
So through your worship, we spent, and if you recall, we discussed this earlier in the year where we invested some money in doing a bit of an exhaustive look at our system and what we found through TFM Consulting. And Ryan will be up here a little later, and you can question him on that specific detail. What we found is it's a relatively new plant. It hasn't had a lot of wear. It's on and off. You know, it can go a couple of years without use. Ryan has a number of procedures he needs to follow in order to make sure that plant cycles appropriately and that the ammonia is stored appropriately. But at this point, there hasn't really been enough deterioration in which we would replace that plant. If council wanted to get out of that ammonia business, we definitely could move to a Freon plant. It would be a little bit different transition than we made at the other facilities, just how it was built. But at this point, from this report, there's no indication that we need to replace that plant at this time.
And there's tons of, right now, I know of facilities that are undergoing that review of facilities, but still staying with ammonia and still staying with ammonia systems. And so I think the issue is ensuring you stay on top of maintenance and operating procedures, and how you handle it is the key to it, and ensuring, as we did, you monitor that stuff to make sure that there are no public safety impacts to it. So, further things for Barry? Barry, thanks so much. We appreciate your report, appreciate your input, and look forward to your next stages of your career, and thank you.
Duncan did say sometimes. Never.
We're just glad you're staying in Dawson.
14.5, we have a report from our General Manager of Development Services. Morning, Kevin.
Morning. So you'll see in the report, it's a bit of a recap of the summer months for development services. What you will see in there is that things were definitely busier than they have been in the last couple of years, so we're seeing an uptick in the development of the community. I think we saw a total of 34 new single-family dwellings. Yeah, 34. So that's definitely an increase over last year. We're seeing a total of $33 million in construction. So again, a nice uptick from where we were. So things are moving, and I think what we're trying to do is position ourselves with the anticipation that things will only get busier as we see some positive announcements in the region. On the engineering side, we had a busy season with capital projects. We finished off the 10th Street Bridge We did a number of repaving projects with 10th Street, 13th Street in McKellar, 15th Street, which included a storm sewer upgrade as per the storm sewer master plan, excuse me, and some additional sidewalk work. So happy to report that those projects are complete other than a few minor deficiencies. So we are ahead of where we were last year. We had a few projects that did not get complete due to weather. So although September was not a favorable month for construction, October has proved to be quite nice and helped everything finish off. We also did finish the drainage project at 7th Street near Walmart, which was a carryover project from last year, awaiting some utility relocation. So that work's complete. On the planning side, another big year with some major projects, and all credit goes to Alex and her staff for completing this. We had the OCP, which finalized and was adopted by council. We had the flood mitigation report that came to council and she was heavily involved with. And then really the majority of the work was surrounding the legalization of cannabis. And that took an incredible amount of work. And again, thanks to Alex for dealing with all the policy, bylaw, all those updates that needed to be done. So with today finalizing with the last bit. Other than that, if council's got any specific questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Kevin. Any questions for Kevin? Councillor Jabekov?
Is it this report that covers off the water plant?
I can certainly answer that. Typically what we've been trying to do, because it is so big, I've separated kind of in two halves the committee of the whole. This is one side, but if you've got questions, I'm happy to see if I can answer.
I'm wondering what the status of the current project is, increasing the capacity. For, production.
Yep, definitely. So the water treatment plant project is all but complete. I think we've got a substantial completion date of November 2nd, or right around there. So Bear Mountain Construction is in there and finalizing a few things. So we're almost home.
So how does that affect the capacity of the our old capacity level?
Compared to the new.
Yeah.
So once it's complete, we're going to see an increase of about 40 to 50% of treatment capacity. So right now our plant running at its fullest 9 to 10,000 cubes. That's really pushing it. So we're going to be in that 14 to 15,000 cubic meters per day, which is a significant increase when you look at our daily stats right now, which are between 4,500 and 5,500 cubic meters per day is what we're seeing. So we've got a lot of room there.
And in our busier times, where last year, as an example, we would hit days where we were up in the 7,000 to 8,000 cubes, nearing the peak of production. So that's a great, I think, message about potential for growth, both for water and sewer on treatment, as well as now a supply. Go ahead, Councillor Jabekov.
So does this affect our permit for water extraction out of the Kiskatna? Or does it bring it up to a maximum?
So the permit doesn't change. What our permit does say is that when the river is flowing above a certain level, i.e. higher flows, we can extract up to 18,000 cubic meters per day. And when flows are reduced, which right now we're kind of right there with the low typical fall flows, we can withdraw up to about 9,000 cubic meters per day. So again, we've got significant capacity, and that coupled with our offline storage allows us to manage it fairly easily at this point.
Okay.
And just one quick note, sorry, I was just thinking about the South Dawson Reservoir. So that's currently being filled. We've got over 100,000 cubic meters in there on its way to the full million. So it's going to take some time, but we believe that in the next 3 weeks we'll have what we need in going into winter, and we'll continue to fill that throughout.
Thank you, Kevin.
You predicted my question.
Councillor Parslow.
Yes, you predicted a question as well, my question. But the So you'd like to comment, I know the answer to this, but I think it's of interest to people. The state of the pipe, what condition you found the state of the pipe when you connected the South Peace Reservoir to, South
Yeah.
Dawson Reservoir to the...
So when they did the connection there, they went down, cleaned it off. It is steel pipe right there, although it's cathodically protected to, maintain its integrity. Found it to be in visually very good condition. We have sent a piece of that pipe out just to get it further analyzed, just so we know. But all things indicate that it's in good shape.
Good. Councillor Javetkov and Councillor Roger.
Just a question on the golf course. I heard that the city had a problem with the water break at the golf course. Did we have a?
So there was a water leak, actually in two places. There was one at the regional district and also at the golf course almost concurrently there in the fall. What we found in both cases is that they were service lines that, the one at the regional district actually was a service that went to nowhere from who knows how long ago. Anyways, that was rectified. The one at the golf course was a service line that supplies the course, and it was determined once we dug down and exposed it that a section of pipe had come apart there. At that point, we turned that over to the golf course because it is technically their service, so they took it on from there.
Thanks, Kevin. Councillor Rogers?
Yeah, just for Mr. Javetkov, it was a 3-inch line that went to the golf course. That's since been abandoned, and they ran a 1-inch line through that existing 3-inch line. And that's why the parking lot has the big sinkhole in the middle of it. Anyways, we were talking about cubes of water and stuff like that, and the rock water has recently pulled out of Dawson. They still have their shop in Poos, but that water meter, the bulk water meter that they were purchasing water from the city, is now removed, I believe. And then with the amount of the commercial water haulers that we had in the past, are we finding that there's a significant drop in revenue because of that for the whole water system? Because if rock water is not hauling water out of, purchasing water from the city anymore, that was a good revenue generator for us.
And I can assume that you're right. We've seen a drop in those industrial water usage. I don't know the exact number. Flavia would have to probably dig that, exactly what that revenue looks like. But we can see as we get our daily reports, and like I mentioned earlier, water consumption, 4,500, 5,000 cubes a day. I can tell by looking at that we're not seeing any industrial sales. When we're busy with industrial sales in the past, we were always 6, 7, or more 1,000 cubes a day. So I don't know the exact number, but yes, sales are down.
Yeah, look at $5 a cube. That's a big chunk of change.
Yeah, but that's been down. The industrial sales have been down for a number of years now.
Or from what they were 10 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Javetkov.
So just a follow-up question on that: is that water service at Rockwater been removed? Is that not functional anymore?
So the service would still be in place. The meter has been removed. And then, so if someone was to subsequently go in, lease the building, and wanted to get back into that water business again, they would need an agreement with us. They'd need to come to council and get approval because it would be a new company or individual.
Thank you. Anything further for Kevin? Thanks, Kevin.
Yes, thank you. Just want to take the time to congratulate all returning, all new, and especially thank you to those that are leaving. I want to say that from all of council, that staff certainly appreciates the support that we see every day from you. So thank you for all your time and service. It hasn't gone unnoticed.
Thanks, Kevin.
Good job, Captain.
14-6, we have our Dawson Creek Regional Airport. Morning, Patrick.
Going to try and keep this as short as possible. So just to address that runway extension, question that you had about AVING. So we did award the engineering and public consultation process to them. With that being said, they have done topographical and obstacle surveying at the moment. They will be starting the public consultation process very soon. We just have to finalize some of the signage that's going to go around town, as well as what we're going to post on the website to allow the public to respond accordingly to it. With that being said, I'll just get straight into the report. So we're keeping the same operational strategies. So developing proactive safety reports, this allows us to address safety issues before incidents occur. We've had 9 proactive safety reports for the year so far. We've had no KDORs from Transport Canada this year. This is the first year that we had 0. Training, staff has undergone quite a bit of training over the summer months, and it's been very beneficial, and staff enjoys that. Getting into the other information, so Central Mountain Air is continuing to provide their passenger service. We're noticing that passenger loads vary on a day-to-day basis. However, we notice that before weekends and after weekends, the flight loads are higher than the other days. So charter aircraft continue to play a big role. Last week we had Step Energy fly in, 50 people for a crew change, and 50 people were in and 50 people were out. So that has a significant impact on our passenger loads for the year. So they're planning on doing this every second week, so that is very positive news. The airport remains busy with medivacs. They continue to play a huge role. When I did this report, it was 153. We're probably nearing around 165 medivacs for the year. We're just working with them as much as we can to, increase our service to them, as well as we have a meeting scheduled next month to see what we can do to provide them a better service. So passenger numbers have dropped slightly. This was mainly due to SunWest. They actually were repainting a lot of their aircraft throughout the summer. So they fly in 5 days a week. So during the summer, we had 0 movements for them. So that played a significant role on our aircraft movements and passenger movements. However, they're flying again now 5 days a week. Sometimes they're even flying in 2 planes a day. So we have seen with the announcements that have been made in the region that the charter industry is picking up significantly. So we've had a lot of activity with general aviation aircraft over the summer. The month of August, we ran through 20,000 liters of avgas, and that's a significant amount. Our capacity for each tank is 20,000 liters, so we pretty much went through a full tank of fuel, which on average it probably will last us 3 months. So that was a big increase in fuel sales. So throughout the summer, we hosted 2 BCIT practicum students, and they had the opportunity to experience the airport environment firsthand, and they spoke highly of Dawson Creek, and they love this community and what it has to offer. So I thought that was a positive to provide you guys with in this report. So in September, we had an Avro RJ100 flown into the airport. This was the Women's Hockey Canada team. It was a pleasure to work with them, and we had the Junior Canucks out on the ramp unloading the bags, and we had a lot of support from Barry as well. This was a big deal for us at the airport, and I think for the city as well. So we hope that we can work with whoever, whenever, to develop on this event's tourism model to provide them an excellent service moving forward. So with LNG announced, we're anticipating a lot of growth at the airport related to aircraft movements and passenger stats. So we're just working hard to ensure that we provide these carriers and companies the best service that we can to develop long-term relationships. That's the end of my report. I just want to thank you guys all for your service and always having feedback for the airport so that we can continue to get better and provide the best service for the city. Any questions?
Thank you, Patrick. Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. I'm just kind of curious. When you sell a liter of fuel, is part of the money, the profit that you make, does that recover any of the repairs, the maintenance, and the equipment replacement costs, or is that all factored in, or is it just a number on the fuel?
So through your worship, the fee for fuel has not changed for a number of years, and my understanding is it was set strategically to try and encourage use at the airport. It's a percentage. 30% over cost, or there's a percentage?
It's 40 cents above the cost that we purchased it at.
Yeah, so that was set strategically to compete with the neighboring markets, is my understanding, and to encourage growth at the airport.
Thank you. Councillor Parslow?
Yes, tell me a bit more about SunWest Aviation. I take it they're a charter company. Where
Yes.
do they tend to fly to from Dawson Creek?
They fly to Calgary on a daily basis. SunWest Aviation is a charter company on behalf of Encana.
I got it. Okay.
So they fly in 5 days a week.
And I have to ask Patrick a personal question. What's the matter with Mo Salah?
He scored on the weekends, so
Yes, but he's not having the season we expect.
Okay.
I haven't seen him for ages. I told you it was a personal question.
I'm not going to let you two go down that. Councillor Javetkov.
So, getting back to the fuel, do we go out for bids for fuel costs, or how do you purchase it?
So we purchase our fuel from Executive Flight Center out in Fort St. John. That was in place before I got here, and we have been working with them for quite a while now. I think the main reason we go with Executive Flight Center is because if we run low on fuel, we need someone close by to provide us that fuel if need be. And I believe that this was just a process that was in place for us to get it from Executive Flight Center rather than anyone else. I'm not sure what the process was before that.
And the fuel is trucked into our community. It's not flown in again before my time and Patrick's time, but my understanding is that proximity was the main reason for that choice.
So I'm just wondering about the competition of the cost of fuel. Is there any investigation as to, is there cheaper fuel available? All fuel is trucked here. Like all fuel is, well, some of it comes in by rail, but.
Yeah. So as we move forward, we're looking at ways to grow the airport, right? We're looking at strategies. I know council's looked at landing fees and opportunities to waive some of those fees for future flights or future development at the airport. I think we need to look at the fuel sales and see if we can find a competitive advantage through maybe another source.
Thank you. Further questions for Patrick? Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate it. Next item, 14.7, we have Mr. McIver in regards to tourism Dawson Creek. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
To start off, Councillor Parslow, the question about for Fernie, just to follow up with that. So this past, I guess it's been over a year, the TFM report, we did the plant assessment. Everything was really good. Some recommendations on going above and beyond the provincial standard through Technical Safety BC. At the same time, we were visited by Technical Safety BC and WorkSafe BC, and they issued orders, and those orders are in light of the Fernie incident, not because we weren't negligent or anything with that. They were all new respects to because of Fernie. All those plant upgrades, the room upgrades, et cetera, to be compliant to the new standards have been met. And our final orders were cleared in September when we did the fire or the ammonia drill. So with respect to the life of the plant, because it's on intermittently throughout the sports and events that we do, and looking to maximize those opportunities, it's about another 7 to 10 years on the plant. So in front of you, or you have the tourism quarterly report. I'm just going to sort of highlight some key areas for you. We too are still been playing catch up in terms of taking it over, assuming new management practices through our corporate structure and policies and procedures, as rolling through some retirement of staff, changing the administrative functions, hiring a new manager of visitor services, rolling through some new initiatives, and making sure that the visitor season this summer was as flawless as it could be. With that, we've continued to move through and develop key partnerships throughout the community, whether it be Summer Cruise, the Art Gallery with their Art Walk, working with the other regional communities, doing the 5th annual Peace Region Community Motorcycle Poker Ride, which was another big hit this summer in terms of moving the people through the region. Working with the Hospital Foundation, and we're in the process of just really starting to roll out our stakeholder communication in terms of that information and everything that's happening within the tourism and hospitality industry to the tourism stakeholders in Dawson Creek and the surrounding region, and sort of all the other events and activities that happen through the summer. We've had sort of connection in terms of gathering information, sharing the information, and trying to find and see how we can help in a limited, short time. With respect to some of the imagery and iconology that the city has and Tourism Dawson Creek has, we're in the process of updating the digital asset database in terms of all the images that the city has had over the years, and working with Destination BC and their new branding and their brand imaging and their brand and thematic strategies around their imaging. And so I can talk about it a little bit later, but that's been a massive process. We're looking to continue to upgrade, get new photography and iconology for the city and the region to further promote and market Dawson Creek. Again, we talked about some of the efficiencies with the Can Event Center specifically, but also on the corporate side of how we can roll through and make more efficiencies. Some of the things that we also helped participate in was the transfer of the Army truck, but also at some point tourism had a authentic 1942 canvas Army tent. It's actually a headquarters tent, and that with the summer it never happened just to everyone was busy here at tourism, but down at Pioneer Village. But that transfer of that tent has gone down to the Reservoir Park Society, so they can leverage that as part of the Army truck and part of that thematic strategy and delivering an authentic experience down and hopefully drive more people down to Pioneer Village. We'll look to work with Bert and the Reservoir Park Society to discuss more what that looks like this coming or next visitor season. A lot of work went in at NAR Park, updating a lot of the visitor center signage, whether it be the static but also the sandwich boards. I remember when over 15 years ago when all those signs were done, those signs were all cracked, were all faded, and so this year, as part of taking tourism over, is that we really looked at that visitor experience of when you roll into NAR Park as your destination key location of what does it look like, how does it feel, what do the visitors see. And so as part of that, we updated all the signage. We moved the mobile visitor center, which was a little bowler trailer that you have, and placed it at the cairn. And the fascinating thing about that is that we identified a ton of leakage, that a lot of tourists roll in, they take their picture, and they carry on up or down the highway. we're going to expand this for next year and add more staff to it and different timing. The reality is that a lot of the people that we touched there didn't know, if you believe this, if there were that there was the art gallery, there was the visitor center, and there was the museum, and some of the other amenities that the community had. So it was a great touch point for us to literally slow these people down and encourage these people to stay longer. We talked about last time we were here, the Mile Zero Master Pass that we passed around, and some of the communication around the Tourist Town activities. Those two items aren't necessarily new with respect, but new ideas, new insight, new ability to share that information to the community. With respect to event and sport tourism, as you know, in June you adopted the policy, and since that time there's been some lot of background work that's been going on with that. We worked with disc golf folks on their Farmington Fling and the Battle of the Peace events, and we started to gather their information in terms of number of people that come from out of town and stay overnight. Interesting, they had, I think it was 2 people from Mackenzie and someone that came down from Whitehorse to participate in the disc golf events. Although it may be small, it's an interesting opportunity to perhaps grow, and I know that they're looking to host disc golf provincials here in the coming year, so we'll be looking to work with them. We've reached out and had some really good conversation with the Canadian Sport Tourism Alliance and working with them on some different opportunities in terms of sourcing information with the NSOs and the PSOs. Currently, it's been an ongoing process, but the facilities inventory of all the sports facilities within Dawson Creek and the immediate surrounding area, some of it exists, but some of the specific technical questions that we are requiring so we can have an understanding. So when we go talk to the PSOs specifically and the NSOs, that we have the information to see what we can and can't do. Ongoing conversations with Hockey Canada with respect to the 5-year hosting partnership that we have. And so we have some different aspects and opportunities that we are aware of and that you're aware of, and we're working through that. As you are aware, we have had 2 staff members join our team. One has started, Lindsay Borick. She started a couple weeks ago. And she is just working through the events calendar in terms of working out at 3 to 5 years out in terms of when are all the major events, what are the different meetings, conferences, conventions, et cetera, and what the region's hosting, and therefore we can understand how we can better attract, recruit, and bring. But also Mr. Raynard will be joining us at the beginning of the year. So we're excited to move that all forward. Again, we're moving on helping with city administration on their hosting grant policy, and we're doing some background and historical work on the MRDT process. I could go on and on and on, but 2 things I just want to talk about is earned media. It's a huge thing that a lot of people don't really understand. The value that people can spends hundreds and thousands of millions of dollars on advertising their product, their business, whatever. But earned media is really where it's at because it becomes from an authentic source, right? Influencers, and people are writing and talking about you and your community on your behalf. So in the report, there's a couple of links out there for you to watch and follow. Specifically, CTV Edmonton did a 5-part series on traveling the Alaska Highway. It's okay, it's good. All media is good media. But also even Global News did a 5 Things to Do this weekend, and they highlighted the Fall Fair as well, so we helped participate in that. And then working with Destination BC on their new fulfillment content strategy as they roll out their new process relating to marketing province of British Columbia, and one of that is the storytelling that happens within province of British Columbia, and there'll be a whole area on the Alaska Highway. And so they've hired a gentleman by Ryan Dickey out of Fort Nelson, who has completed one of the first of many aspects of the storytelling, and it's a very interesting aspect. I guess the final thing is, back in the day, stats is always interesting, right? So we started to collect. It's not by anywhere stretch the imagination finished, but just sort of the statistics of a dashboard of the tourism sort of industry within Dawson Creek. There's a lot of gaps within it that still need to be flushed out, but some of the data that we do collect, that we can collect and share with you. Last year was the 75th anniversary of the Alaska Highway, so we would know that there would be a dip in terms of travelers this summer, dip in gift shop revenues, dips in all aspects. So, but based on the numbers and stuff, we're sort of holding our own. There will be a dip. We've seen, you know, the number, one of the things is that with the Master Pass and with the Alaska Highway House, we've seen a big increase in terms of the admissions, the number of caravans and bus tours that we participate in, and even the inquiries and the tracking of the information that we're sending out on your behalf, and the other attractions and their information. Again, this is an ongoing management process that we'll continue to do. And then, you know, this past September, hosting the National Women's Team here from a tourism and from the event center side, just a massive success in terms of the impact that they have within the community, but their training here in Dawson Creek, I know, was very well received in terms of Hockey Canada's world, but even here around with the participation in the development. With that, councillors, it's been a pleasure working with you, some for a short time and some for a very long time, as advocates for the community and tourism and the event center over the last 10 years, et cetera, in the process even beyond that. So I just want to thank you for your time, energy, and effort and support through all of it.
Thank you, Ryan. Questions? Councilor Rogers?
One question, one more little advocacy thing.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I hadn't heard you talking about, okay, as you know, I sit with the Dawson Creek Senior Secondary School Athletic Committee.
Yes, sir.
And we've had the conversation before, whereas if we're talking about sports tourism, the focus should be on the school sports. Because as a school sport, if you're hosting tournaments in town, you're not bringing in individuals, you're bringing in families. And you're bringing families into town. And with the amount of tournaments that are being planned for this upcoming season, I think it's a significant amount. And I'm here to say, would you like to attend a Dawson Creek Senior Secondary School Athletic Committee meeting, which will be coming up, and I could let you know.
Yes, we have had conversations. The challenge that we've had was when everything happened with the summer break, and is it Judy Bowling? No, is that right?
Yeah, Judy's there.
Judy, as the athletic director, that with school starting, etc., we've been playing email, phone tag back and forth. But I do know that we have talked to some of the sports groups, volleyball specifically, and they have a tournament this November, but also they're looking at hosting provincials next November. So we've had some individual streams of conversations, but of course, if you'd like to help facilitate, be more than pleased to take advantage of that.
Thank you. Further questions for Ryan? Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
That ends our committee of the whole, so we at this time need a motion to recess to close. Councillor Parslow, Councillor Schumann, in favor? Opposed? Carried. So we'll take a 5-minute break while we